and welcome to another Q&A for British Science Week 2024. Today we're joined by Zoe Clark, who is a mission manager for Spire Global. Hi Zoe, thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, about Spire, and what a mission manager is?
Hi, yes, of course I can. So Spire Global is a satellite data company. We build, test, and send satellites to space. We do satellite data for tracking ships, tracking planes, weather data, and various other applications. I am a mission manager within the company, so I work for the launch team. This means that I am responsible for making sure that all the satellites within the company are launched successfully.
That sounds really interesting. We've had a few questions from some students that we'd like to ask you today. So I'm going to start off with Isaac, Paul, Evan and Oscar from Eastway Primary, and they would like to know, what do satellites do, how fast do they travel, and how high up are they?
Our satellites track ship, planes, they monitor the weather, and they also monitor the Earth's surface. They travel about 17,000 miles per hour around the globe. They are high up enough, so they are just orbiting the Earth. So this means that from the Earth's surface, they're about 500 to 600 kilometers high. We also do use our SpaceX rockets, and we use different rockets all over the world.
That's amazing. So our next question is from Ron in Gosfield School in Essex. How long does it take a satellite to reach space?
So our satellites are relatively close to the Earth. So from launch, it can take about 1 to 2 hours before our satellites are deployed into space.
Oh, so not long at all, really.
No, not long at all.
Brilliant. So Ruby from the Wirral asks, how long does it take to build a satellite, and are there many women that do your job?
So our satellites can take between a month to 2 months to build and test the full satellite. Obviously, if you're building much bigger satellites, these will take a much longer time. There are a lot of women in the space industry right now, but there obviously could be a lot more.
Okay. George from Merseyside asks, how are satellites powered?
So our satellites are powered by solar panels, like you'll see behind me. These solar panels are pointed towards the sun, and when they're sun facing, it means that it charges the batteries inside of our satellites.
Brill. Frankie from Cheshire asks, what is the best colour for a satellite? And is there anyone that's in charge of space?
So personally, I think the best colour for a satellite would be blue, but that's because it's my favourite colour. For the question of who's in charge of space, it's definitely a tricky one. Governments control certain areas and frequencies within space, so it's a bit of a mismatch of who controls it in total.
Okay. Holly in Lincolnshire asks, how do you know which satellites do what, and is it an enjoyable job to do?
So the way that we work out what satellites are what is every single one of our satellite gets its own personal name. And our company runs a very cool initiative where we actually get to name our very own satellite. So I have a satellite up in space right now called Lemur 2 Zoe, and I can track it at any point.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, can anyone get their name on a satellite?
If you work for Spire, yes.
Fair enough. Aaron and Ethan from Heswell Primary School say, how long does it take a satellite to go around the Earth? And I really like this one, did Elon Musk really put a car into space?
So for a satellite to go around the Earth, you're looking at about 90 minutes, so about an hour and a half for it to produce a full orbit. And yes, Elon Musk really did put a car in space purely to prove that he can.
Fair enough. Will and Jasmine from Dorpool Primary say, how big are satellites, and did you always want to be an engineer?
So our satellites range from the size of a shoebox up to the size of about a suitcase. There are companies out there that do build satellites that are about the size of a double-decker bus. So there is a very wide variety of satellites out there. When I left school, I did want to become a police officer. Unfortunately, I didn't do very well in my exams and decided that I was really good at working with my hands. So I knew that engineering was something I was really interested in, and that's the path that I took.
Excellent. Evie from Gayton Primary says, how long does a satellite stay in space?
So it depends on what use the satellite is doing up there. Usually it's between about 2 years and 10 years for our satellites, but the satellites, like I said, that are about the size of a double-decker bus can be up there for hundreds of years.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's the end of our questions from our students, but I've got a couple if you don't mind. Do you have a best and worst part of your job?
The best part of my job is definitely watching all the satellites that we build launch, and the worst part would be watching rockets fall into the ocean.
Yeah, I can imagine that's quite disheartening.
Definitely.
My final question for you, what skills and qualifications did you need to do your job? Did you go to university after college?
So after school, I decided that I hadn't done well enough in my exams to go to university. So that left me in the position where I could go on do an apprenticeship, which is what Spire offered me. So that meant for the first 4 years of my career, I went to college at the same time as working in the office. This was a really good way for me to learn because I learned through doing things with my hands, not copying things down from a board.
That's great. So there's lots of different ways into being an engineer that's not just the traditional route of going to university.
Yes, definitely. And I think with engineering as well, people learn in so many different ways. So it's a really good way for people to come into the industry.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been great to hear from you today, all the way up in Scotland. And thank you for your stories and your answers. And I'm sure that everyone at home is feeling really inspired. There are lots of other sessions available on STEM Live from this week, so please go and check them out at stemlive.co.uk to watch them all. Thank you and bye.